Everyone, if I could get your attention, please, thanks. Welcome to our All Candidates panel discussion. We're incredibly excited about this event, and thank you all very, very much for taking your Thursday evening to come join us. If you do have cell phones, I do ask that you make them quiet. That would be lovely. We're very proud to hold this event on traditional Shwapam land here at the Coast Kamloops Hotel and Conference Center. The Riding Association has had a very, very busy year coordinating our candidacy race. We've had a very large number of very interested and eminently qualified potential candidates talk with us. We've now got 3 candidates that have completely committed. Their hat is in the ring, and we couldn't be happier with the quality of the people that we have running through. Now, for the evening itself, our moderator, Mel Rothenburger, will have 4 questions to ask the candidates. In between each of his questions, we will be taking 1 to 2 questions from the crowd. I do ask with your questions that you ask, please keep them clear and concise. We are working on a fairly tight timeline, and we want to make sure that we're able to get through everything that we have planned for tonight. So thank you very much for that. We've chosen our speaking order at random. We've got our first speaker is Steve Powrie. Our second speaker is Peter Mutrie, and our third speaker is Niki Remesz. I'm very, very excited for this. Like I said, we've all been really looking forward to this evening, and I hope that you guys enjoy. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Good evening, everybody. I am pleased to have been asked to moderate this event this evening. I'm a little nervous. The last time I was in a room with this many Liberals, I was being tarred and feathered for endorsing Nelson Rees, so Oh, come on, bygones. I know there are people of other political persuasions here this evening as well to hear what our candidates have to say. So the idea is that we have a pleasant but hopefully lively discourse, and as Tyler said, we will ask a number of questions and then have some time for the audience to chip in on the topics as we go along. And candidates, just a bit of protocol here. Don't be too nice to each other. Just pretend, you know, this is question period, and the other 2 are Tom Mulcair and Stephen Harper. And Stephen. When you're speaking, and we can have an interesting evening. We are committed, as Tyler said, to be out of here in about an hour and a half, so we'll keep it moving as well as we can. First of all, before we get to the questions, each candidate is allowed to give a brief introduction of themselves, who they are, whatever they want to say, and anything they want to touch on before we start with the questions. So the first speaker that we will go to is Steve Powrie.
I'd like to apologize ahead. Can you hear that? No. Closer. Closer? I think it's, oh, flick it on. Right, like that?
There, now closer.
I think I might have to hold it.
Yes.
And I do have to apologize for speaking quickly because I'm not used to speaking in 2 minutes. I tend to go on and on and on, and so I've tried to cram a lot into 2 minutes. So you'll have to be like on the edge of your seats to catch them. It's been a rough ride for Canadian democracy over the past 10 years. It's been distorted, muzzled, restricted, squashed, and spun to the point where it's virtually unrecognizable from examining much of the world. And this done by a government whose majority mandate to do so was from just 24% of eligible Canadian voters. As a result, a political malaise seems to have set in, people feeling increasingly disconnected, cynical, and fatigued by the current processes and policies, people lacking trust in their politicians to genuinely represent their wishes and concerns, and people tired of a government that is defined by its narrow agenda, simplistic responses to complex issues, controlling culture, and confrontational stance. But rather than sink in this collective pool of apathy, I find myself strangely motivated to jump in. Because I won't deny it, I'm a political junkie and I have been for some time. In kindergarten, I was lobbying for longer nap times, and by grade 4, I was reading the newspaper from front to back. It's understandable that I acquired this particular bent when one considers the politically charged environment I grew up in. As a young Canadian boy, I lived in the US during the highly volatile 1960s. My father was a professor at the University of Wisconsin, a flashpoint for the anti-Vietnam War movement. And my mother was a civil rights worker during a time of huge transition, the rights and opportunities for African Americans. I remember as my father described locking himself in his office during the riots, desperately phoning the university presidents as the National Guard tried to pound down his door. And one time being awakened in the middle of the night and ushered into the basement, only to find out later that someone had lit a cross on our front door. So here I am after all these years, on the edge of turning a passion for politics into something more practical. The world needs better politicians. There are too many with good intentions that fall away under the strains of the pushes and pulls of the political system. And then there are those who went in for the wrong reasons right from the start. Ideally, when we vote, what we're looking for is a person with whom we can lend our trust, and that they are capable and willing to listen to and represent our needs and concerns. And I would consider it a privilege to be able to accept that responsibility. Thank you.
Very much, Peter. Peter Mutrie.
Thank you. Can you hear me at the back? This is working? Excellent. So by way of introduction, thank you, Mel. Thank you all for coming tonight, giving up a perfectly good evening to sit here and listen to us go on and on. I'll try to be brief. So I am Peter Mutrie, and I have a passion for politics. I find that the liberal values are actually my values. And as I read through the material, I find that there's a lot of synchronicity between who I am and how I've been. I think, like many of you, I have solved the world's problems, the country's problems, many, many times over coffee. And I've come away feeling rather good about that. However, those ideas don't travel very far. And I have been fortunate in this life because I have had opportunities to take some ideas and put them into practice. I found myself with a fabulous opportunity to do that with the Quadri Island Salmon Enhancement Society when I served as vice president there for 5 years. And on the Quadri Island Forest Resource Committee when we helped broker conversations with the Forest District, Fletcher Challenge, and other volunteer agencies and societies in the area. Worked with the Log Building Industry Association and had a chance to advance some ideas around value-added forestry. And of course I worked with the North Shore Business Improvement Association where I also had a chance to advance some ideas. Now all of those were team games. I cannot take full credit for being there, but I can take credit for being at the table and for pushing ideas. Some of the ideas I actually came up with and put on the table. And I think there's now a time, if ever there was a time in our history to have ideas, new ideas, fresh ideas, that time is now. We have, as a species on this planet, many, many capacities and technologies, and many of them, I would say, are out of control. They're used for narrow reasons, for short-term reasons and short-term thinking. I would like to bring some long-term thinking to the discussions and to the debates. So I would like to thank my fellow contestants here and recognize the courage that it takes to present yourself and be up here to step forward. I know how nervous I'm feeling right now, and I can't imagine that anyone else would feel differently. So commend my fellow contestants for being here. I'd like to wish them well in presenting themselves so that you, the members, have a chance to make an informed decision on who you think the candidate might be going forward. I will tell you that I would like that candidate to be me. I would like to put my ideas at head office with your support and get some other new ideas from you so that we can challenge the current government and change the direction of where some of our policy baskets are taking us. We have a huge job ahead of us. We have a future ahead of us. We have to craft it and we have to go for it. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Peter. Niki Remesz.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I am Niki Remesz. I left my contact information and a little bit of details about my life on your chair. I encourage you to reach out and call me. My husband and I made the choice to move to Kamloops in 1995, 2 weeks after we got married, and it was home from the minute we laid our head on a pillow. We loved the 4 distinct seasons. We loved skiing and curling and golfing. and the quality time that it allows us to spend with our friends and family. We also love going to Blazers games, Western Canada Theatre, the art galleries, and so many other things that Kamloops has to offer. I opened my business in 2003. It's a marketing and consulting business. And what that is I help businesses understand and communicate their brand better. Living in Kamloops has given me a strong sense of community, and I love it here. It's allowed me to engage in social organizations and boards, which give me greater insight into the issues that are taking place here in Kamloops, but also lets me have a voice in shaping the way things run and are here as well. With the full support of my family, what's next is most exciting to me. I'm here in front of you, asking for your support. My name is Niki Remesz, and I want to play a bigger role in shaping and caring for this community, our economy, and our environment. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So we'll go to the first question now, and you may have answered this in part in your introductory remarks, but the question is, why did you decide to stand for the federal Liberal nomination in the Kamloops Thompson Cariboo riding? And we'll stay with the same order. We'll start with Steve.
So for me, it was three reasons. The appeal of centrism, the rejuvenation of the federal Liberal Party, and Stephen Harper and his merry band of followers. I would argue that Canadians in general are naturally centrist. Am I not? I'm not on. Sorry. Try that again. I basically, for three reasons: the appeal of centrism, the rejuvenation of the federal Liberal Party, and Stephen Harper and his merry band of followers. I would argue that Canadians in general are naturally centrist, finding it to be a more reasoned and relevant approach, as opposed to thinking in terms of narrow ideological bands. Centrism invites a broader range of perspectives and a longer view. It's based on gray zone thinking, which promotes flexibility and adaptability, and it's less polarization and fosters greater collaboration. And these are the features that characterize the centrist Liberal Party. The second reason is that the Liberal Party has come back from the brink of extinction. There is a growing excitement and enthusiasm that is building momentum right across Canada, including in this riding. Justin Trudeau is the antithesis of Stephen Harper in every respect. He's passionate versus stone cold, reasoned versus calculating, open-minded rather than tunnel visioned, and he's a collaborator who seeks common ground as opposed to my way or the highway. And imagine a government based on those attributes. Which leads me to the final reason, Mr. Harper's Conservative government, a group whose shelf life has extended far past its due date. Blaming on ignorance, arrogance, or both, their narrow and simplistic actions and policies are dreadfully incompatible with today's complex and changing world. Their black-white thinking, mode of operations is simply a justification for sitting on their hands and maintaining the status quo as the world flies by. And there are plenty of examples, and unprecedented 5 Supreme Court rejections of conservative actions and policies. No to action on climate change because it ruins the economy, a damaging notion that is both past tense and misguided. No to an inquiry looking into the root causes of the disproportionately large numbers of murdered and missing Aboriginal women. No to looking at alternatives to how we deal with marijuana. And no to scientific research as described in this memo from a Deputy Minister's office, which reads, research must be controlled from the top to ensure that it supports government policies. I was always led to believe that the purpose of research was to inform and guide policy, not to reflect it. Maybe we could counter the campaign pitch on Justin Trudeau being in over his head with Stephen Harper, he's out of touch. Thank you.
Peter Mutrie.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Steve. So why did I decide to stand for the nomination? There are several reasons. I'm motivated. I'll just pull the mic forward a little bit.
Your time's almost up.
And in closing, I thank you very much for that. So we'll start again, take two. Why did I decide to stand for this nomination? Well, I have to tell you, I'm motivated. to work towards an appropriate balance among the economy, the environment, and the social programs. We're all in this together, they're all interrelated, they're all integrated. Individual approaches often fall short of the mark because they create problems in other areas. And I'm also struck with the alignment between my values and the Liberal values. And if ever I'm going to apply my energies, it's now. This is my time in life to step forward and make something happen. And and the environment is good for that too. Steve made some excellent points. The Liberal Party is on the way back, and for me it is the natural ruling party. It is the party in the central. We can lean a little left, we can lean a little right, we can capture the middle ground. We can claim the middle ground, we can define ourselves by it, not let ourselves be defined. We can be proactive with the middle ground. So I have to refer to my notes here, but I would like to support national strategies for creating wealth, for transitioning from our oil-based economy to defining and investing into what's next. That discussion is immature at this point. I'd like to support the middle class by creating equal opportunity for people. That's a set of discussions that needs some really, some heavyweight, that needs some real consideration. I'd like to support national strategies for retaining our environmental heritage, the environmental capital that we have been mining. I would like to leave something for my grandchildren, for your grandchildren. And I'd like to support national strategies for childcare, early education, addictions, homelessness, poverty, and especially First Nations healing. We have a First Nations situation that we've inherited. It's a huge topic. I would like to support some policies that support the healing and not just look at this situation from the narrow soundbite lens of today. We have generations into the past where problems were created, and we have generations into the future where healing needs to take place. And we're behind that. We're behind on that. And I'd like to support recommendations that will come from Justice Murray Sinclair's Truth and Reconciliation Commission related to that past. I'd like to get away from the reaction of fighting crime and work for creating healthy people, healthy communities, and healthy economies.
Can you wind it up, Peter?
I certainly can. Thank you, Mel. So I'm running to work for a better future. And I'm here to put things on the table that we can vote for and not simply vote against. I would like to motivate people to come on down and vote for something that the Liberals stand for. Thank you.
Niki Remesz.
Thank you. I grew up with Liberal values of hard work, courage, and compassion. And I married a man with Liberal values, collaboration and kindness, and we're raising our son with Liberal values, being kind to others, and feeling gratitude. I believe that every person's opinion matters, and if they have the courage to voice it, then they should be heard. I have entrepreneurial experience, and I'm interested in how the government's decisions affect our economy and the livelihood of its citizens. We need a collective voice, and I am choosing to be that voice. I'm an active member of this community, and I have been since we moved here in 1995. And it's because it excites me, and I'm interested. I want to be informed about the issues that are affecting this community and understand how policies affect the people living here. When I was approached in March, I gave this a lot of thought. And I'm not a politician, because when I think about a politician, I think of a person who serves themselves, and that is wrong. I'm willing to stand in the public eye and represent this community. I've always taken action, and I am asking you to allow me to take action on your behalf.
Thank you, candidates. This gives us an opportunity now to take some questions from the audience on that topic or related topics. If you have anything you'd like to ask them. If you have a really loud voice, you could probably stand up and use it. If not, you're certainly welcome to come up to the microphone. Does anyone, and you can direct the question, I think, to either one candidate or all three of them. Get and compare their views. Anything you'd like to ask? Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I would like to know from the candidates at this point what their experience has been in the Liberal Party itself. How long have they been involved and in what capacity?
Okay, is that clear, candidates? Steve.
Well, I would have to say that mine is limited to voting Liberal, and I'm actually have not been a Liberal member up until the last few months, and but I've always believed in Liberal values and principles, and I have voted Liberal, and so that is my extent.
Peter?
Well, similar to Steve, I'm a new member to the party. I've grown up over the cycle of many elections, and I have voted Liberal most, but not all times. For me, it will depend on the candidate, the riding, the issues, and I will make determinations on where my vote would be best placed. I have to admit to, on occasion, voting for the Green Party when I know that a certain candidate will sweep that riding, especially if I can't vote for that candidate. Liberal values, though, the center of the road values are my values. And it's time now to stand up and to put those values and those principles into action. So my experience is I'm a new member, and I'm a Liberal at heart.
Thank you, Niki.
I'm really in the same boat, similar to these people, growing up with Liberal values. I believe that most Canadians do hold Liberal values, actually. And what changes that is fear. And I believe the Conservatives have done a great job of creating that fear. What I'm really excited about, though, is that we do have a new leader who we can get excited about, we can have trust in, and that we can start having these conversations and start coming out of the fear and actually taking action to do something different. I hope I answered your question, Lance. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good first question. Are there other questions to the candidates in this area?
I have a question I would like to ask.
Yeah.
I would like to know, if it came down to it, who would you represent, the party or your constituents?
So the question is, who would you represent first, the party or your constituents? Steve.
Well, I think that's a great question. I think that part of the answer comes probably based on what the issue is. I think, as we all know, there are certain beliefs that are mandated by the party, such as being pro-choice. And then there are others that I think are much more flexible to representing the needs of your party. Now, one of the resolutions that was put forward to the Liberal Party from Montreal was that that representatives of ridings have more power to make autonomous decisions. And I think that's really important if we're going to bring democracy back to where it should be, because we have seen too much in the last 10 years, and I think that the system has a tendency to pull people into that. I mean, party line is a very difficult thing to go against, even if you find that it's contrary to the needs of your riding. But I think that the Liberal Party is making it easier, or the attempt of the goal is to make it easier for the individual riding members to say, this is the best interest of my party.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. That is a great question, and thank you for asking it. I see it in a couple of points. You have to be the voice of your constituents at head table. I'll just move the microphone up a little closer. Not used to the microphone. You need to be the voice of your constituents at the table. But I have to tell you, it's easy to sit here, having never been deeply into the system, and to have all the ideas, and to say, boy, if I was king for a day, here's what I'd do. And then you get downtown and you get briefed by the senior bureaucrats and you get a reality check on what's really going on. And you have to say something like, wow, I had no idea what I was walking into or what was really going on. So whatever promise or perception you may have out here, once you get in, you'll find that there's other information to factor into the equation. So back to your question, I think there has to be some flexibility on how that response goes, and I think there has to be a sense of balance for who the constituents are, what their aspirations are, what their messaging is, and then what the realities of what the party's strategic plan is. And hopefully that gap is not too large. That gap will be there. And it'll have to be managed on a series of judgment calls, and it'll be really hard to give a definitive yes or no answer in response to your query. Thank you for listening.
A week or so ago in Kamloops this week, Lawrence Beaton wrote in to the editor and felt disheartened because he felt that he had no power because the candidate had to toe the party line. I don't think that that's right, that the community has to feel powerless. The person who is representing this community is the person who's supposed to speak and go to bat for this community. That is what we're here. That you are who is electing that person. That is what I think is most important. And so when we look at even issues as foreign workers, that's a Western issue that might not be getting the same attention in the East. But it's an issue that is affecting our retailers, and they want to make sure that they can keep their doors open, and they're relying on those kind of programs. That's an issue that affects us here, and that needs to be communicated to the powers that be. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move along to the second question at this point, and we'll change the order just a little bit. We'll have Peter Mutrie answer first, and then Niki, and then Steve. And the second question is, what do you feel it takes to be an effective member of Parliament? Peter.
Thank you, Mel. I think you need to be able to listen and learn. You need to represent the views of your constituents. I think that's job number one. But you also need to have a view and a voice of your own, one that resonates with and speaks for your constituents. You need to share information and rationale from national decisions with your constituents. Back to the question from earlier. You need to work for balanced decisions. Too many times decisions are from a single point of view. There's many factors to balance in these decisions, and you need to see those balances, and you need to work for them. You need to speak up. If you're going to represent your constituents, you can't just sit at the table. You have to speak up on occasion. And you need to bring some national program resources back to the riding. Enough taxes go out. You need to bring some resources back on occasion for whatever the projects are that are near and dear to the hearts of the constituents and that can fit the national programs. You need to make those bridges happen. And you need the ability to see issues from different viewpoints. Thank you.
There are three components that are essential to being an effective MP as I see it. The first is a willingness to listen and hear everyone's view on every subject. The second is initiative, a commitment and drive to learn what is affecting, challenging, and impacting all levels of our community. And unless you're willing to be part of that community, you can't expect those people to come to you. And the third thing is action. Advocating, networking, and initiating programs and policies that affect this riding. And being there to take the steps to initiate those. And make sure that you're personally involved in that decision making and how it will create benefits for the people living here. So let me give you an example. In my business, I never accept 2 clients in the same industry, and that just prevents a conflict of interest. So I'm used to going into a new industry environment cold and having to learn all the details about it. So I help my clients, I learn about my clients' customers, I learn what threatens my clients' growth, and I discover what my clients do better than their competition. I help my clients be more successful because I demonstrate the ability to listen. I close my mind to preconceived ideas. With collaboration, I work really hard to learn the issues that are affecting my clients. And then I create an action plan that helps them move forward and be successful. So when we talk about our economy, the environment, and social programs, it's not a fast process. But I'm here for the long term. I'm here to work on creating systemic change and advocating for issues that matter to this riding that affect my child, your children, and future generations to come.
I believe there are 4 elements that are important to be an effective member of Parliament: advocacy, authenticism, accountability, and a degree of autonomy. As an educator, my greatest responsibility is to be the advocate of every student who walks through my classroom door, regardless of their differences or challenges, whether they're in grade 7 or in one of my university classes. To do so fosters senses of reliability, respect, and trust, the same qualities we would want from our member of Parliament. As an elected representative, I'm an advocate for every constituent who walks through the door, regardless of their party affiliation. Being authentic means that people know where you stand and trust that your actions will speak to your words. There are too many political chameleons out there who are adept at changing colors and patterns at will, the purpose being to serve their own political ambitions as opposed to the people they're supposed to be representing. And this leads to being accountable, being answerable for your actions and decisions, but beyond that, being available to explain and accept feedback on the decisions of the government. And whether people agree with you or not, they're more inclined to accept the differences in position if they know you're an advocate, authentic, and accountable. And finally, there needs to be a degree of autonomy if an MP is to act in the best interest of the riding. The Kamloops Thompson Cariboo riding is a very different dynamic and demographic profile than Toronto Centre or Halifax West. Autonomy cannot be exercised when MPs are treated merely as puppets on a string. Members of Parliament are at the very core of the federal representational democracy. They're responsible for bringing the grassroots wish lists and the concerns of the governing body. And even though there will be 338 MPs vying to have the best interests of the ridings represented, if each one were to show that they had advocacy, authenticism, accountability, and a degree of autonomy, then the energy of democracy would be considerably enhanced in Canada. Thank you.
We've got a few minutes for questions from the audience, if anyone has one they want to direct to one or more of the candidates on the area of being an effective member of Parliament.
I would like all the candidates to answer this question. If you were called a tax and spend liberal, how would you answer it? It's very important. I've been a liberal for 20 years.
How would you answer being called a tax and spend liberal? Peter. Pull your mic up close and...
Thank you, Mel. I'll probably get the hang of this as the evening goes on. A tax and spend liberal? Well, all parties are tax and spend. To what degree and to what balance, to what end? Taxes are the price of admission for the civil society that we have right now. We are among the wealthiest and best educated people that have ever lived on this planet. We have benefits that we could spend a long time defining. And part of that civil society that we enjoy is because we have tax and spend ratios, branches, paradigms. So I think there's, come back to the term balance. tax for what reasons, invest in what for expenditures. And those discussions swirl at every political party, at every level. So tax and spend Liberal, I guess I would have to say yes. Aren't we all?
Niki, any comment on that?
I do, thank you. The Harper government inherited a $13 billion surplus. So let's let the numbers do the talking here. They cut the GST by 2%, and in 2 years, they were running a $6 billion deficit. In 4 years, they were running a $55 billion deficit. And 2 years ago, they were running a $600 billion deficit. So they've cut our taxes, and now what are they doing? They're attacking our OAS. Healthcare is on the table. They're cutting all sorts of programs that look after those people that need the most help. There's a need to invest in the economy. There's a need to invest in healthcare. There's a need to invest in people that are most vulnerable. Where does that money come from? Well, we try and keep taxes low. As a business person, I want to keep taxes low as well. But I also want to make sure that our society is looked after. Do I want to see a balanced budget? I would like to see a balanced budget, but I do not want it to be done against those that are most vulnerable in our community.
So I guess we better get used to hearing that, because we're going to be hearing that for the next year, the fact that tax and spend Liberals, and they'll nail the NDP as well. Harper has got an obsession with austerity programs, and he is going to announce a surplus in probably January or February, and then there are going to be tax cuts in association with that. But the economy in this obsession with austerity, the economy has been flat. And if you remember in 2008, 2009, when the crash hit, Harper trumpeted the fact that Canada was insulated from the effects of the crash, and the United States was being plundered. Well, since that time, the United States has got job growth of 200,000 jobs per month. They've reduced their deficit. Instead of austerity programs, they've done stimulus spending. Their infrastructure programs are huge. And so really, instead of austerity, which has put us in a hole, the Obama government has done stimulus spending, and they have risen the economy. So I think, as Peter said, if you take the negative spin off of tax and spend, in actual fact, it's the basis of all governments, isn't it? And it's the reason that we have one of the best lifestyles in the world. But it's to what degree and if there's a balance.
Thank you. Is there another question from the audience in this area of discussion? Is everybody happy with the way things are going in this country? No other questions? If not, we'll move on to question number 3. And this time we will ask Niki to respond first. And the question is, how will you win next year's election?
How will I win? Oh, sorry. How will I win next year's election? With your support and your vote, and I will earn it. Let me start with a story, please, about great leadership. Nelson Mandela was asked, what makes a great leader? He said he learned that leadership isn't about asking people to follow, but it's about being amongst people. Because it's when you're amongst people that you understand them, and that will guide your direction. I do understand most forms of marketing and how to use it, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years. But the real work and the most fun
is the relationships that I would foster and the communication that we would have. As for specific details of how I would plan to win, well, I know Michael Crawford's here. So I don't really think it's appropriate for a public forum, but I invite you to join my team and be part of that conversation. And that is something that we can do together. And speaking of together, the one thing that will make a difference on whether or not the Liberals take this riding is you. All of us have a direct responsibility to influence a successful outcome. Winning means supporting your candidate by getting directly involved in this campaign. So from volunteering, to sharing issues with your friends, to inviting your candidate to get to know your networks. We are in this together, and it's together as how we are going to win this riding.
Okay, Steve, you're next.
Although the reliability of political polls is certainly questionable, when different organizations show a consistent Liberal lead for 16 straight months, it does at the very least reflect a trend. If these results are based primarily on disenchantment with the present government, then they're prone to shifts in preference with so-called good news announcements like a budget surplus and tax cuts, or doom and gloom scenarios rooted in fear-mongering and cynicism. But if the lead is being fueled by optimism about the new directions and leadership that the Liberal Party offers, then this support will be much more steadfast. Therefore, my goal will include to be burning a few holes in the actions and arguments of the Harper government, but more importantly, to counter the widespread malaise by providing solid reasons why people should vote for Liberals, including the appeal of a centrist approach, a change in tone, and progressive policies that are relevant and effective in today's world and to the Canadian voter. I want to bring back the Liberal voters who left the fold over the past 15 years and tiptoed to the left and to the right. I would venture to guess they've been waiting for a reason to return, and the rejuvenation of the Liberal Party is offering just that. A key goal will be to focus on youth and seniors. The 18 to 24-year-olds only voted 37% in 2011, and the seniors crowd, because typically they vote Conservative. Significant voting shifts in these groups could considerably enhance Liberal support. As the issues become clearer and the policies more defined over the next year, it will be important to address them, but also to listen to the views of constituents. A government of the people, by the people, for the people is crafted through input and feedback. And finally, I plan to model the kind of representative I would be, open and approachable, a listener, a creative and critical thinker, and a doer. And of course, to show that I'm an advocate, authentic, accountable, and autonomous. Thank you.
And I'm up. Thank you. So how will I win next year's election? With style and aplomb. Is there any other way? We have several assets that we can work from. We have young Liberals, a strong and growing team, young ideas, new ideas, a view to the future, a grasp of where we are and where we need to be. And there's a demographic traditionally underrepresented at the polls, and I feel very strongly that that is a major part of the team going forward to run a successful campaign, is to engage, to excite the Liberal vote, to get the vote out. And like Steve, we need to have reasons to vote. We have to transcend the doom and gloom. We have to have some excitement for the future. Not only that, we have to have a platform and a program to get us into that future, something we can talk about, something we can illustrate, demonstrate, display. We have to excite the vote. So I will commit, I will conduct myself in a respectful manner. I will define and claim the middle ground. I will apply my whole being to represent the interests of the whole riding. As was mentioned earlier, we have a complicated riding. It's scattered all over. Kamloops is vote rich, but there are many, many votes and many, many people outside of our central little area that also have hopes and aspirations that need to be honored and factored into how we move forward. I will collaborate and share objectives and resources with other representatives, all representatives. I will work with the Liberal team to excite the Liberal vote. We will inspire a vote for something, not just against something. And we will work to have a strong voter turnout. A strong Liberal vote will give people something to vote for. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Questions? Anyone? Yes?
I have two sons, 23 and 28. They both vote. Many of their friends don't. I would like all three of you to give me a suggestion of how we can entice those 18 to 25-year-olds to get out of their houses, to come and vote, to be responsible, to be involved, because that is our future.
You stole my question.
Sorry. Whoever's first, sir?
I'll take,
Well,
I'm okay, or Mel?
does anybody want to go first, or shall we just kind
You tell us.
Yeah. You're in charge, aren't you?
I think so. Niki, you go first.
Okay. I think that when we're talking about the 18, 25-year-old, I volunteer at TRU a lot. I'm the chair of the Alumni and Friends Association. I work with mentorship. I'm chatting with a lot of those that age. They got a lot on their plate at that age. There's career transition, there's school, there's loans, and a lot of times it's making ends meet so that they can eat. There's a lot on the plate of that demographic. So aside from being there, listening, helping them as they transition outside of that critical age, these things are important to do, but I think that we also need to understand where they're coming from and not rain on them. You are lucky, as you said, you vote as a family. You go and have dinner together afterwards, and that is amazing. And that's something that I want to do with my son. But I think we also need to understand where these people are at and cut them some slack and be available for them. And education is one of those things that we can do that. And dinner time discussions around the table as a family. Thank you for your question.
Steve and then Peter.
Well, for me, I'd start 2 words, Justin Trudeau. And I work with that age group as well at university. And when one of my students heard that I was considering putting my name in, she said, well, will I be able to meet Justin Trudeau? Well, I'm here, but didn't seem to go down. Basically, you have 30 seconds to impress them. That's what it boils down to. And I can tell you as an educator, in the years I've taught, I've had to change dramatically. You cannot sit there for 45 minutes and give a lesson and expect they're going to take it in. And what you have to do is it's fast flow. And I mean, you look at kindergarten teachers, they're masters. They're changing activities every 10 minutes. These kids are weaned on a fast society. And it's instant gratification, instantly disposable. When something's not working, you throw it away, you don't fix it. And so we have to change our strategy. To be quite honest with you, if I were a young person and I'd be reading the paper, I would not be looking at politics, because that's very dry. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do to, unfortunately, it has to be some glossiness. Because it's that glossiness is what's going to pull them in. And you know what? Once they're pulled in, substance then matters. And I can tell you right now that kids are not superficial. But their initial exterior probably appeals more to the, but once you open those doors, they're deep. And you know, I guess one of the things that characterizes kids now is they know a little about a lot. And I think if we can present to them the issues that are out there that are directly relevant to their lives, that government has an impact on, you see, a lot of them don't think that. A lot of them think deficits, they think, you know, Afghanistan, they think, you know, ISIS. But when it comes down to is your everyday life is impacted 40 times a day by government. And so I think it's a matter really of stripping, of getting beneath that exterior and to the substance of youth.
Thank you, Mel. Well, that's a great question. And I do have children that are in voting age and approaching voting age. I'm struck not just by how many youth fail to honor the right to vote, the responsibility to vote, but how many adults as well fail to participate in the process. Politics is practiced as a pretty dry, pretty negative, pretty salacious and sensational topic. Our media friends make a living on this, crafting the headline just so, for a little outrage. And I think many people are just plain turned off at the whole game and don't recognize the relevance of what senior policies are all about and how it affects their lives. So my approach to engaging youth would be to strategize, craft messaging around the serious issues of the day. I find that my children and their friends have some substance to them, that they have some intelligence to them, that they will engage in conversation and will say surprisingly bright things and surprisingly deep things. They're unconnected. The children today are busy with their lives, fast, fast, fast. But I think as Steve pointed out and as Niki pointed out, you know, they're busy, but if you scratch, there's substance there. They've all watched public television. They all know about tsunamis and earthquakes and climate change. They all know about oil spills, and it scares them. And what can they do? What's the significance they can bring to the program? And I think that's our challenge and our job, is to craft a strategy to put the topics forward in a way that makes sense, and in a way that gives hope, and that people can come and vote for something. Because if we leave them scared, and we just leave the political game to the old fogies, then they won't be engaged. So we find ways to engage. I think that's our job.
Is there one more question relating to winning the election? Yeah.
British Columbia is as polarized politically right now as I have ever known it to be. And it seems to me that a lot of the people who voted Liberal provincially are going to be voting Conservative in the federal elections, which means that for the Liberals to win, we have to persuade a lot of people who voted NDP provincially to vote Liberal federally. And I'm wondering how you would go about persuading those people that the federal party is quite different or distinct from the provincial party.
Okay, I don't know if the room could hear all of that, but to sum it up, you're saying that BC is quite polarized, that a lot of provincial Liberals are federal Conservatives, and how do you change that and get provincial Liberals to vote Liberal federally?
Not really. I actually think that a lot of provincial Liberals will vote Conservative regardless. I think that's a given, which means that if the Liberals are going to win federally, they have to persuade a lot of people who vote NDP at the provincial level to vote Liberal at the federal level.
All right.
I'm actually one of those people, and I'm wondering what you can say to me that will make me feel comfortable voting Liberal, given the baggage that the name brings for me as a resident of BC.
All right, candidates, did you understand the question? Niki, you were first out.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's Elizabeth, right?
Melissa.
Melissa, sorry, Melissa. We were on the strategic planning committee at TRU together.
Yes.
I've been out in the community a lot, especially recently, and having so much fun doing it, and dropping in at a lot of business networking events. I understand from talking to a lot of people, people are confused about the difference between the BC Liberals and federal Liberals. So I learned just recently that in 1989 is when the BC Liberals split with the federal Liberals, okay? So they share a name only, I understand that. And how they share this name is, I think, where the difference stops. If we look at the economy and what the Harper government has done for our economy, they haven't done a lot. In fact, they've increased the number of part-time jobs, but they haven't increased the full-time jobs. Those have gone, okay? That's serious. And ask any nurse how they feel about part-time work. They want the full-time jobs. If we look at crime and Harper's stance on crime, it's not working either. And we know if we throw people into jail for maybe having a few pot plants, what's going to happen to those people? They're in jail, now they're caught in the cycle. It's not a good place. And that's just one small example on his war on crime. If we look at what Harper's doing to the environment, he doesn't care. Harper only cares about those that have. He cares about the 1% who have money. And therefore, the rest of us and the middle class, we're paying for that. Our debt has never been higher. The Conservatives have never balanced the budget in over 100 years. Melissa, have I given you a few things to think about? Because I could go on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Some of you may have heard that there's a bit of a sandbox tiff going on between teachers and the government. And as an educator, I have spent more time in the last few weeks delineating between provincial and federal Liberals. And it really isn't hard to do. Leaders reflect the policies, principles, and tone of their party. Our party leaders do. And if you look at Trudeau, and if you look at Christy Clark, there are some pretty dramatic differences in the two of them. I think some interesting things about the provincial Liberals are her right-hand advisor is the ex-right-hand advisor of Harper. And at their meeting, the annual meeting this year, she lobbied to have the name changed from Liberal. So even the Liberals don't feel that they're truly Liberals. So I think it's very clear that if you're dissatisfied or disenchanted with the provincial Liberals, that you can put that over here. And it allows you, it frees you to look at these Liberals maybe with a bit of a clearer mind, because there are a lot of things to offer that are basically progressive and moving things forward as opposed to holding things back and being regressive. And so it's interesting how you asked that question, because I have answered that question a number of times. Is that helpful? Okay.
Thanks for asking that, Melissa. So what would I say to you to have you cast your vote for the federal Liberals? I think I would want to engage you in a dialogue, in conversation, about what's important to you, what's important to your world, what's important to your country. And I would approach it from a basis of claiming the middle ground. The right-wing governments of this world, and we can go back to Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, started on a path of right-wing economic tinkering with economies, national economies, and that has continued for several decades under George Bush and now under Mr. Harper, and we've come to here, where 1% of the world's elite controls 85% of the world's wealth. This is a result of somehow government policies guiding money flow to where they think it should go on some economic theory that I would challenge. The trickle-down theory does not necessarily work. It allows those who can to accumulate, to acquire vast amounts beyond their needs and want more. And where did the middle class go? It's been fed on and nibbled at over this whole period. So where's the middle ground on all of this? Arguably, the provincial liberals can be described as neoconservatives. They are certainly business friendly, and I will have to admit that many of my friends are liberals, and I even worked on the campaign last time. I will just say that. There's a business balance there that has merit. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about today is the federal scene and the federal liberals. And what's the new balance for our future in this country? A balance that would be set, hopefully, beyond just an election cycle or a few short sound bites. We need to look at this in a generational time frame, way beyond the election cycle. We have social issues, we have economic issues, and environmental issues. So my federal agenda would be to bring a balance to the economy, to the environment, to the social issues, with hopefully a long view lens. And with that, I would encourage you to join me in that conversation. Let's share some viewpoints, and let's see if it doesn't make sense for you to come along and be a federal liberal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for those questions. We have one final question tonight. The candidates don't know about this one, but it relates to, and when I ask it, keep in mind, it's talking about personal qualifications and skills. So it's not much less of a policy question than a personal attribute one. And the question is this, and we will go back to Steve to respond first. What will you personally bring to the job as a member of Parliament? So what is it about you that we should want to vote for?
Just so happens I thought about that.